Leigh, did you hear what you wanted to hear from Apple so far?
Yeah, they beat both the Estimize top and bottom line numbers. Not as much as they did last quarter, but I think the buy side got a better idea of just how good these iPhone 6 numbers were going to be. So stock is up. I think everybody's pretty happy. It was above expectation. It wasn't a blowout, but good numbers.
Yeah, Cory, and good numbers. Apple made a lot of money.
Yeah, Apple also sold 61,170,000 iPhones in the quarter. Compare that to the 44 million average. There were 44 million rounded up that they sold a year ago. So tremendous year-over-year sales gains. I'm just looking at my model really quickly as I start to put these numbers in here. So units up 138% year-over-year on what wasn't that bad a number a year ago. So forget what the analysts expected. Let's just look at this as a business. This is a rapidly growing business with their most profitable products growing the fastest, and that's very impressive. I'm going to continue to put some of these numbers in here because this looks like a really strong quarter. They're reporting and guiding to yet another one next quarter.
And I should point out that China sales, which is something that obviously we want to look very closely at to see how much they're selling in China, came in at $16.82 billion. Michael, you own the stock. What do you think?
Well, I just heard that last number. That's a huge beat. The other beat that I'm so happy Cory is on with us, because the last time I was on with him when Apple reported was when they did the massive increase in their buyback and dividend picture, and this time around the $200 million, which you talked about. I think that's eye-opening, Cory. Do you not?
It is. I mean, it just shows what a cash machine this business is. I mean, they're just generating so much cash. I mean, think of what they're doing at the same time, right? They're having this huge capital expenditure programs with their suppliers. We're essentially paying for the capital equipment they'll need to make the next line of products. At the same time, they're building this outrageous headquarters in Silicon Valley, the likes of which the world has probably never seen before. This giant donut-shaped thing in Cupertino with customized glass and underground parking and just an amazing thing. And in the midst of this, they're generating boatloads of cash that they're throwing back to shareholders in the forms of dividends and buybacks, which of course increases,
39% margins, gross margins,
and sick margins, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like they're giving it up on margin.
And guys, talking about the capital return to shareholders, Scarlet, you've been digging through some of that. Tell us what you found.
Yeah, so as part of this capital return program, where it's going to increase it to $200 billion overall, Apple is also boosting its dividend by 11% to 52 cents a share from 47 cents. Analysts were looking for an increase, but probably just to 50 cents. So this exceeds their expectations. Apple also says it will continue to access domestic and international debt markets. That's because a lot of the cash that it does have on hand, part of that $180 billion that's holding in cash and short-term investment, is overseas. And if it actually used some of that for stock buybacks, it would have to pay taxes on it. So it'd rather take advantage of low interest rates and its high credit rating in order to borrow some money and redistribute that to shareholders. Also, I should mention the Forex impact, because we mentioned how much Apple relied on China for sales, $16.82 billion from Greater China. The headwinds from a strong dollar will be a factor this quarter. Apple is quantifying that at 800 basis points. That will be the impact of the strong dollar on Apple's bottom line in the fiscal third quarter.
Yeah, Michael, when you talk about Apple's capital allocation program, is that what you want them to see do with the money, or do you want them to see invest it, maybe make a purchase instead?
I think they're doing a spectacular job, Alix. I think the 11% dividend increase, the cash they're using there, the expectation had been they were going to do what they did, which was a surprise last quarter, an 8% increase. So to go to 11% increase, I think it's brilliant. I think that what they're doing in terms of managing the offshore versus the onshore cash is brilliant. I think you're going to get a breakout of Washington sometime in the next couple of years with respect to a tax furlough for some of that cash to come back in. I think at this point I have nothing to complain about whatsoever.
Oh, fair point. Leigh, talking about China, we did report that China sales coming in $16.82 billion, saying that it was helped by the Chinese New Year and that iPhone sales in China outsold the U.S. That would be the first time that this has ever happened. Sustainable?
Yeah, so the numbers are up 72% year over year in China versus 5% overall. And here's the really important thing about that. over the last 2 quarters, you've not only seen this replacement cycle of iPhone 5 to iPhone 6, but more importantly, this is the first time that Apple's had a large screen product for those people in China to go buy. And that's not just going to be last quarter and this quarter. It's going to last for a couple more quarters as that replacement cycle really takes place. And we're seeing on Estimize the estimates for both EPS and revenue much higher than the street going out a couple of quarters because of this kind of replacement cycle. And I think this continues.
Michael, one quick thought before we go here. It seemed like there were 2 sticking points. One was the FX impact. Also looking forward to third quarter gross margins came in a little light than estimates at 38.5%. What's your biggest concern for Apple?
You know, that they lose the touch. Right now, all the things that Cory talked about and that Leigh talked about, they've got the touch. The foreign exchange thing, 8% impact on IBM, 3% on Microsoft. This is not a surprise, and right now there's not a whole lot to quibble about.
All right, Michael, thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us. Leigh and Cory, you are sticking with me. We have much more on those Apple earnings. Just to recap quickly, second quarter earnings coming in $2.33, revenue coming in at $58 billion, and iPhone sales in Greater China outsold that in the U.S.